Hello guys, welcome to my channel. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Rachel. If it is not your first time, then welcome back. I know it's been a really long time, so this is definitely an impromptu video, but I did want to do a labor and delivery story. So that's what I'm gonna do. So if you guys want to know what happened during my labor and delivery, then keep watching. So I haven't been on in a really long time because I was actually having a really difficult last few weeks of my pregnancy. This is probably going to be TMI, so if you guys expected one of those beautiful pregnancy, labor and delivery story, this is not one of them. So you probably want to get out. Yeah, so the last few weeks of my pregnancy, I was pretty much homebound. I really couldn't get around. I couldn't really walk. It was really hard. I needed a lot of help. So my mom was here helping me during that time. And it was because I had hemorrhoids. Yeah. So I know it might not sound like a big deal, but it was. They were really bad, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It was to the point that I couldn't, anytime I went to the bathroom, like even to pee or to poo, it was excruciating. It was horrible. I even cried to my doctor to give me a C-section because I was scared that my butt was going to explode. Not kidding. I even went to the emergency room to have them drained. Like I said, TMI. Luckily for me, that wasn't necessary. But yeah, the last few weeks of pregnancy were hell. I was basically like crying every day, and my mom would come and help me. My husband even missed a few days of work so that I could go to the doctors and I can go to the ER. So not only did I have hemorrhoids, but I also had diarrhea. So that just exacerbated the hemorrhoid symptoms. So yeah. Really, it was because this is my fourth pregnancy, and McKenna, I guess her head was just putting a lot of pressure down there, so it just popped those suckers out. So yeah. So that's how I spent my last 2 weeks of pregnancy up until my labor. November 12th, I started getting contractions, and they weren't really close together, and they really didn't hurt. So it was kind of like whatever. But then towards, I'm gonna say in the afternoon, they started getting a little bit more consistent and a little bit stronger. So I told my husband, I think this baby's coming tonight. So because the last few weeks of pregnancy were so hard on me physically, and my husband was constantly working, I didn't get a chance to set everything up the way that I wanted. So there you have us that night trying to set everything up. We put the crib together that night. Well, we had already put it together, but we kind of like finished it up. So we moved it to where we wanted to. We moved our other daughters, we moved Lucille's bed into her bedroom, and I folded all the clothes, I put it away, I put the diapers away. Let's see. Yeah, so we got the room set up, our room set up, because our daughter sleeps in our room. And I packed my bag. I literally packed our bag that night. So about 11, they started getting pretty strong, and I was like, okay, they're getting stronger and they're pretty consistent, but it wasn't to a point where I felt like I couldn't rest. So I told my husband, I'm gonna go take a nap and try to get some rest before I go into active labor. So by this time it was midnight, and just my luck, right when I want to go try to get some rest, they pick up and they start coming about every 5 minutes. So I could, and they were a lot stronger, so I could no longer sleep. And then around that time, my husband came in to go to sleep as well. So from there, I didn't get any rest. So I was laboring. I was breathing through my contraction. So by 3-4 in the morning, the contractions were 3 to 4 minutes apart, and they were pretty strong. So I woke my husband up and I told him, I was like, we need to go to the hospital because it is my 4th pregnancy. I thought that it was going to happen fairly quickly, and I didn't want to do a home birth. Around 5:30, my mom came and we headed to the hospital. They took me up to the room and they checked me, and I was at about 5.5 centimeters. And my contractions were already, like I said, 2 to 3 minutes apart and pretty strong, that I thought I was going to be further along. So I was completely devastated when they told me I was only 5.5 centimeters. And I was telling my husband, I want to get an epidural, I want to get an epidural. Because guys, by this point, like I said, the hemorrhoids were so bad, they were so bad that I couldn't even go pee. So because of the hemorrhoids and because of the baby putting that pressure, like on my uterus and on my bladder, they said that she was possibly blocking my bladder with her head. So I could not go to the bathroom, and I had a full bladder. So I was just miserable. I was like, I want an epidural, and my husband was like, are you sure? You said you don't want an epidural. I know you're in a lot of pain. So my husband was just, trying to be as supportive as possible, but also remind me of what I wanted with our original birth plan when I wasn't in so much pain. Because when you're in pain, you kind of make rash decisions. So I'm really glad that I had him there to just remind me of what I originally wanted. So fast forward about 2 hours, it's about 8. Yeah, it's about 8. And they come and check me and they tell me I'm at 7 centimeters. And my contractions are really strong and I'm shaking. The doctor comes in, checks me, tells me, okay, you're 7 centimeters. And they tell me, if you want to get an epidural, this would be the time to do it because you're not going to be able to do it later on. So I tell my husband, you know what? I want the epidural. Please just support me on this. And because you're not in the pain that I'm in, you're not feeling what I'm in and what I have been feeling for the past 2 weeks, for the past couple of weeks of this pregnancy. Like, so just give me the epidural. And I wanted them to give me the epidural so that I could get a catheter and empty out my bladder. They start getting all the paperwork ready to give me the epidural. They bring the doctor in. He talks to me, or sort of talks to me, because I was like in and out of it. I'm kind of like there, like, sure, just give me the epidural, I don't care. They come in, they have the doctor talk to me, then they have us watch a video. Like I said, I didn't watch it, my husband watched it. They have us sign this paperwork. So it took about half an hour just for them to talk to us, fill out the paperwork, and have the doctor actually come in to try to start to give me the epidural. So he comes in, he tells my husband to leave the room because he says that I guess some dads, like maybe it's like some dads pass out or something like that. They have me, if you guys have gotten an epidural before, they have me like hunch over, hold onto a pillow, and they want me to stay very still with my contractions. And so the doctor starts cleaning me up, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I got one with my son, when 10 years ago, and it took about 5 to 10 minutes for them to do it. Like it was fairly quickly that he got it on the first try, and that was it. That was not the case this time. He starts to put it in, he pokes me, I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I get a contraction, so he stops. He's like, okay, let me know when your contraction's over. And he pokes me, and I feel like a shock on my right thigh, the top of my right leg. And I was like, I feel a shock. And then he's like, okay, let me try it again. Again, I get shocked. And then he's like, okay, let me try it again. So he tries it again, and then this time it shocks like my whole leg. It goes all the way down to like my foot. So, and I'm like, like, ow. Well, not like that, but more. I was like, I was like, my leg. And he's like, which leg? Your right leg. What are you feeling? I was like, a shock down my whole leg. So what he was saying was happening is that when he's trying to place the needle, that it was like hitting my bone. And I guess he was just like scraping my bone. And guys, I kid you not, he does it about seven to 9 times. It takes about half an hour, and I'm getting contractions throughout all of this. I'm hunched over, I can't move. And he's like, okay, let me try another size. So the last time he tries it, I get a shocking pain on my right hip. And after that, I screamed. I screamed, and I was like, no. I was like, stop, like right now. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I was like, I don't want the epidural. I was like, just stop. Because by this point, those shocking pains and the hip pain and the contractions, it was just too much that I'd rather just labor through it. And he apologizes, and he's like, well, I'm sorry. I really wanted to try to get you some relief. But I was like, I would rather go through labor and poo or pee on myself instead of being paralyzed. So, but he did poke me about 8 or 9 times. And it was weird because it didn't feel like he was in the center. It felt like he was more on the right side, which would explain why I was feeling these shocking pains on my right side. So after that, the doctor comes in to check me, and it's been about an hour. So by this time, it's already like 9 something. And she comes in, she checks me, she's like, you're at 8.5 centimeters. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how am I not at 10 centimeters? And she's like, we can break your water, and it would probably make the labor go a lot faster. I was like, you know what, just go on ahead, just break my water. So she breaks my water, and within about half an hour, she's like, okay, well, let me know when you're ready to push. And she leaves the room, and like not even like 2 minutes later, I was like, I feel like I have to push. So she comes in, she checks me, she's like, you're at 10 centimeters. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's moment of truth, right? And guys, it's my 4th pregnancy, but no matter, I don't care how many kids you've had, when that moment comes, it's pretty intense. And I just remember this one hurting a lot more than it did with my last 2 pregnancies. So I think it did, but it did go by fairly quickly. So after about, I don't know, I'm gonna say about 3 pushes, like her head's right there, and the doctor's like, oh, you can feel her head. So I feel her head, and I was like, it feels like an alien head, right? Because it's like all smushed. And then she's like, okay, just give me one more good push. With the pushing, I wanted to try to push, breathe her out, which is a technique that you can use instead of pushing and possibly tearing. But that's a technique that I wanted to try to use because I didn't want to irritate the hemorrhoids or have any tearing. So I was pushing, I was breathing her out, but finally, like, there was just so much pressure and her head was there. So I did the last push. I didn't necessarily breathe her out. I just, bear down. And she came out, and that hurt a lot more than I remember with my other pregnancies. The first 2 hours, she was on my chest. She nursed, she latched on perfectly. She ate for about half an hour. We just got to do the baby bonding. My husband didn't get to hold her right away because at the hospital that I was at, they want the mom to have the baby on skin to skin for 2 hours. I just wanted my husband to take her after she nursed so that I could get some sleep, because by that point I had already been going on 24 hours with no sleep. And it wouldn't be another couple of hours till they let me sleep, because every 15 minutes they were coming in and doing vitals on me and vitals on my daughter. So that is one of the cons of having a hospital birth. We were only in the hospital for a day, and it was because I wanted to get home to my other 2 kids. I miss them so much, and this was the first time that both my husband and I were away from our daughter Lucille, who at the time was 16 months. So that was really tough on all of us. And McKenna just did so well. She slept in the little bassinet that they give you. Lucille would never sleep in that thing. She would cry the moment we'd put her down. She latched on really well. She would nurse and go to sleep. So me and my husband actually got a lot of rest in the hospital. That was my labor and delivery story and epidural fail. Yeah, I might be doing like a postpartum update, just how everything's been going. And I have so many ideas for my channel, but I just haven't been able to get to them. It has been super hectic. I hope you guys enjoyed my labor and delivery story, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Yeah, nice.
Lucy, is that your baby? Is that your baby? Who's that?
What's that?
Lucy, who's that? She said, that's for you, big sister. Nice.
This for you, from your sister.
Say thank you.
Say thank you.
You're gonna put this other part in. Lucy, that's your baby sister.